Doctors couldn't save the female CEO until a poor single dad did something shocking. 500 of the world's best doctors, millions of dollars spent, every treatment failed, every specialist baffled, a woman dying in the most exclusive hospital suite in Atlanta. Her body destroying itself in ways medical science couldn't explain. And then at 3 in the morning, a black man knocked on her door, holding a small glass jar. And what happened next would change everything they thought they knew about healing, about wisdom, and about who gets to be a hero. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. The fluorescent hallway lights of Mercy Heights Medical Center hummed their usual monotone symphony as Amari Holt stood outside Suite 12, his heart hammering against his ribcage. His weathered hands, calloused from years of gripping mop handles and pushing industrial cleaning equipment, trembled slightly as they clutched the small glass jar. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. Behind that door lay Dr. Nia Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Life Sciences, one of the most powerful black women in Georgia, dying. And he, a 40-year-old night shift janitor, was about to walk in there with something that could either save her life or get him arrested. His janitor's uniform suddenly felt too tight. The jar felt impossibly heavy. What am I doing? But then he remembered watching her through the partially open door just last week, sitting alone at 3 a.m., trying to work on her laptop despite the bandages wrapped around her hands. Remembered the sound of her crying, deep, sorrowful sobs that echoed the kind of grief he knew too well. Remembered her whispering to herself, "I built my company to help people. Now I can't even help myself." Amari raised his hand and knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Felice Grant stood there, Dr. Caldwell's assistant, a black woman in her 50s with silver-gray locks pulled into an elegant bun. Her eyes narrowed the instant she saw him. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was sharp as a scalpel. "This is a private room." Amari's throat went dry. "I wanted to speak with Dr. Caldwell." "About what? The floors?" Felice's tone dripped with contempt. She positioned herself squarely in the doorway, a human barrier. "It's almost 3 in the morning. Get out immediately or I'm calling security." "Felice, wait." The voice from inside was weak, barely above a whisper. "What is it you want?" Amari tried to see past Felice's shoulder. "Ma'am, I know how this looks." "Oh, I'm sure you do." Felice's hand moved to her phone. "A janitor showing up in the middle of the night with who knows what in a jar. This is completely inappropriate. I'm calling security right now." "Please," Amari said, his voice gaining strength. "I've watched Dr. Caldwell suffer for weeks. I've seen the doctors fail one after another, and I have something that might help." Felice actually laughed, a harsh, incredulous sound that made Amari's face flush with embarrassment. "Are you serious right now? You have something that might help? You, a janitor, have solved what the best medical minds in the world couldn't?" She turned her head slightly toward the room. "Nia, this is absurd. He's probably trying to sell some snake oil. Security will—" "It's not snake oil." Amari's jaw clenched. "It's a remedy that saved my daughter's life when she had a condition that destroyed her skin, when the doctors gave up. Oh, please. Every charlatan has a story. Every scammer preys on desperate people. Nia, I'm calling security now. This man is clearly—" "Show me." Both Amari and Felice turned to look toward the bed. "Nia, you can't be serious," Felice protested, her voice rising. "This man is a nobody. He cleans floors. He probably got this concoction from some internet conspiracy site. You've had Nobel Prize winners examining you, and you're going to listen to—" "Show me what you brought." Dr. Caldwell's voice was stronger now, cutting through Felice's objection. Amari held up the small jar. Through the glass, a golden substance caught the light, almost glowing in the dim room. It's a specific mixture of calendula, colloidal oatmeal, raw honey, and lavender oil. But the key is in how it's prepared and where the ingredients come from. Felice scoffed loudly. Honey and oatmeal. This is ridiculous. Nia, your immunologist from Emory, prescribed cutting-edge biologics designed in a laboratory. And this janitor thinks honey is the answer. The biologics nearly killed me, Felice. The quiet statement hung in the air. That's different, Felice shot back. That was real medicine, not some grandmother's recipe from a man who probably didn't even graduate high school. The words hit their mark. Amari's face flushed deeper, but he held his ground. You're right. I didn't go to college. I clean your floors and empty your trash. His voice was steady despite the tremor in his hands. But I also held my wife's hand while she died from something doctors couldn't fix. I know what it's like to watch someone slip away while experts shake their heads. And I know what it's like to see a miracle when my daughter's skin healed after everyone said it was impossible. This is emotional manipulation. Felice turned fully toward the bed now. He's playing on your desperation. Nia, please let me call security. This is dangerous. He could be mentally unstable. The jar could contain anything. Felice. Dr. Caldwell's voice was quiet, but carried an edge of steel. Look at his eyes. What? Look at his eyes. Look at his hands. Felice glanced at Amari dismissively. I don't see. His hands are shaking, but not from fear. From hope. From the weight of what he's about to do. There was a pause. Then Dr. Caldwell continued. He knows he could lose his job for this. He knows we could have him arrested. But he came anyway. I've seen 1,000 doctors in the last 6 weeks, Felice. Every one of them looked at me like a puzzle to solve, like a challenge to their ego, like a case study for a medical journal. Another pause. This man, he's looking at me like a person who's suffering. That doesn't mean his jar of goop will help. Felice's voice cracked slightly. Tell me, Dr. Caldwell said to Amari, why did you really come here tonight? Amari met her eyes. He could barely see them through the swelling, barely make out her beautiful dark brown skin beneath the angry red welts and scales that had replaced what was once flawless. But he could also see something else, a desperate, flickering hope. Because I couldn't sleep anymore, he said quietly, knowing I might have something that could help and doing nothing about it. Because every night when I clean this floor, I hear you crying when you think no one's listening. He swallowed hard. Because I know what it's like to feel helpless, ma'am, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. 5 years ago, Amari Holt had been a different man. He'd worked construction during the day, came home to his pregnant wife Tasha at night, and dreamed about the family they were building. They'd picked out names, painted the nursery, pale yellow, argued playfully about whether their daughter would have his eyes or hers. Then Tasha went into labor, and everything changed. The complications started small, just some unusual bleeding. Then her blood pressure spiked. Then her organs began failing one by one. The doctors ran tests, administered treatments, brought in specialists. Nothing worked. It was as if her body had turned against itself in ways they couldn't understand. She'd held baby Layla once, just once. Long enough to whisper, "Take care of our girl," before the machines started screaming. Amari had buried his wife on a Tuesday, started his night shift janitorial job the following Monday. He needed the health insurance for Layla, needed the steady paycheck, needed to keep moving because if he stopped, the grief would swallow him whole. "Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking," Amari said now, still standing in the doorway with Felice glaring at him, "how long have you been sick?" Dr. Caldwell's voice was hoarse. 6 weeks. It started as a rash on my arms. Minor irritation. I thought it was stress, maybe an allergic reaction to new soap. A bitter laugh. Within days, it spread. Now 60% of my body is covered. The pain is indescribable, like my skin is on fire every second of every day. And the doctors, her voice cracked. 500 consultations, specialists from Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, physicians from Switzerland, Japan, Australia, 43 different treatments. Each one either did nothing or made me worse. The steroids shut down my kidneys. The immunosuppressants triggered seizures. Simple antihistamines sent me into anaphylactic shock. Felice interjected, her voice defensive. We've tried everything. The best minds in the world have examined her. This isn't something a janitor with a jar of kitchen ingredients can fix. But Amari had stopped listening to Felice. He was remembering. Layla had been 6 months old when the eczema started, tiny red patches on her cheeks that spread within days to cover her entire body. She'd screamed through the nights, her baby skin raw and bleeding where she'd scratched it. The pediatrician prescribed steroid creams that did nothing. The dermatologist suggested elimination diets, special formulas, hypoallergenic everything. Nothing worked. Amari had been at his breaking point, exhausted from Lila's screaming, from sleepless nights, from watching his daughter suffer, when his elderly neighbor, Amakusi, had knocked on his door. Ama was in her 80s, a Ghanaian immigrant who'd lived on their floor for 40 years. She'd heard Layla crying through the walls. My grandmother had a remedy, she'd said in her warm, accented voice, pressing a yellowed index card into Amari's hand. For skin, that medicine cannot help. You try, yes? Desperate, Amari had tried. The recipe was specific. Calendula extract from flowers grown in alkaline soil, colloidal oatmeal ground to exact fineness, raw honey from bees that fed on specific wildflowers, and lavender oil. But not just any lavender oil. It had to come from plants grown in mineral-rich soil with particular pH levels. Ama had been adamant about the preparation method too. The ingredients had to be combined at exact temperatures in a specific order, and it had to be prepared during a new moon, something Amari had dismissed as superstition, but he'd followed every instruction anyway. Within 3 days, Layla's skin had started healing. Within a week, it was completely clear. The pediatrician was baffled. The dermatologist had no explanation. Amari had kept that index card in his wallet ever since, a reminder that sometimes answers came from unexpected places. This is insane. Felice's voice pulled Amari back to the present. Nia, you're going to trust your life to a janitor's home remedy? What will the board say? What will the medical team say when they find out? What have they done for me, Felice? There was steel in Dr. Caldwell's weak voice now. 500 doctors, millions of dollars, and I'm still dying. My skin is on fire every second of every day. I haven't slept in 3 weeks. I'm 35 years old and I'm planning my funeral. Silence filled the room. Tell me about your daughter's condition, Dr. Caldwell said to Amari. So he did. He explained Layla's eczema, the failed treatments, Ama's remedy, the specific ingredients, and why they mattered. He talked about how calendula had anti-inflammatory properties, how colloidal oatmeal was actually FDA approved for treating skin conditions, how raw honey provided antimicrobial effects. Felice paced the room, periodically scoffing and rolling her eyes. But Dr. Caldwell listened intently, her scientific mind engaging despite her pain. The lavender oil, Dr. Caldwell said slowly. You mentioned specific soil conditions, mineral-rich with particular pH levels, that could theoretically affect the chemical composition of the essential oils produced by the plant. You're actually considering this? Felice was aghast. What else do I have to consider? Dr. Caldwell's voice rose slightly. Another team from Berlin who'll tell me they've never seen anything like this? More steroids that shut down my organs? More nights wondering if I'll wake up tomorrow? But he's nobody. Felice gestured at Amari's uniform, her face flushed with frustration. And maybe, Dr. Caldwell said slowly, each word deliberate, that's exactly why he can see what everyone else missed. Sometimes the answer isn't in making things more complex. Sometimes it's in remembering simplicity. Amari placed the jar gently on the bedside table. His hands had stopped shaking. I'll leave it here, ma'am. The instructions are taped to the side. If you decide not to use it, I understand completely. I had to try. He turned to leave. Wait. Amari stopped, his hand on the doorframe. If I use this, will you come back tomorrow night to see if it worked? Felice made a sound of complete exasperation, but Amari ignored her. Yes, ma'am, he said simply. I'll come back. After Amari left, Felice immediately launched into a tirade. This is the most irresponsible thing you've ever done. A janitor, Nia. A complete nobody with some jar of who knows what. The media will have a field day if they find out the CEO of a pharmaceutical company resorted to… Felice. Dr. Caldwell's voice cut through the rant. In all your concerns about appearances and protocols and what people will think, did you notice something? What? He never asked for money, never mentioned a reward, didn't even ask me to try it. He just left it here and said he understands if I don't use it. Felice fell silent. 500 doctors, and not one of them looked at me the way that man just did, like I was a person, not a medical mystery, not a challenge to their reputation. Just a person who's suffering. The room fell quiet, except for the soft beeping of monitors. I'm going to try it. Just a small amount on one patch of skin. If it makes things worse, we'll know immediately. But if it helps, Felice, if it helps even a little. That night, despite Felice's continued protests, Dr. Caldwell carefully applied a small amount of the remedy to a patch of affected skin on her forearm. The texture was smooth, the scent gentle, lavender and honey. Within minutes, the incessant burning sensation began to ease. Not much, just enough to be noticeable. By morning, something remarkable had happened. The angry red welts in that small patch had calmed to pink. The scales had softened, and for the first time in 6 weeks, that section of skin didn't feel like it was being held over an open flame. Felice stared at Dr. A. Caldwell's arm in shock. It's probably coincidence, spontaneous improvement. These things happen. But her voice lacked conviction. When Amari returned the next night, pushing his cleaning cart down the executive wing, his stomach was in knots. Had the remedy worked? Had it made things worse? Would security be waiting to escort him out? He knocked softly on the door of Suite 12. This time, Felice opened it without hostility. Her expression was complicated, confusion, wonder, and something that might have been the beginnings of respect. She wants to see you, Felice said quietly, stepping aside. Amari entered. Dr. Caldwell was sitting up slightly in bed, and even from across the room he could see the difference. The patch of skin where she'd applied the remedy looked dramatically better. It worked, Dr. Caldwell said, her voice stronger than the night before. Mr. Holt, it actually worked. Amari, he said automatically. Please, just call me Amari. Amari, she smiled, the first real smile Felice had seen in weeks. I applied it to larger areas this morning. Same results. The pain is less. The burning has stopped in those spots. It's like my skin is remembering how to be skin again. Over the next 3 days, the improvement was undeniable. The remedy that 500 doctors had failed to provide had come from a janitor's wallet, written on a yellowed index card by an elderly Ghanaian woman who'd learned it from her grandmother. Felice, forced to acknowledge what she was seeing, became an unlikely ally. She helped document the recovery, ensured consistent application of the remedy, and even researched the scientific basis for why it might be working. I owe you an apology, Felice said to Amari on the 4th night. I judged you, dismissed you, nearly had you arrested for trying to help. You were protecting her, Amari said simply. I understand that. No. Felice shook her head. I was protecting my assumptions, my belief that wisdom only comes from people with the right credentials, the right degrees, the right positions. She looked at him directly. You taught me something important, Sometimes the answer isn't in the people we expect. As Dr. Caldwell's condition improved, something else began to happen. During his nightly cleaning rounds, Amari would stop by her room, just for a few minutes at first, to check on her progress, to adjust the remedy's application based on which areas needed more attention. But the conversations began to stretch. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 30. Soon Amari was spending his break sitting in the chair beside Dr. Caldwell's bed, talking about everything and nothing. She learned about his life, about Tasha's death and the medical mystery that had taken her, about 4-year-old Layla who loved drawing and asked endless questions about how clouds stayed in the sky, about his mother who watched Layla during his night shifts, but was getting older, more tired, about the weight of being a single father, of working a job that exhausted his body so he could provide for his daughter. He learned about her life, too, about building Meridian Life Sciences from nothing, about the pressure of being a black woman CEO in a male-dominated industry, about the loneliness at the top where everyone wanted something from you but few truly saw you, about her dreams of making medicine accessible, of funding research for diseases that pharmaceutical companies ignored because they weren't profitable enough. "I've been so focused on helping people on a grand scale," she said one night, "that I forgot what it feels like to be helped as a person, not as a CEO or a case study, just as someone who's suffering. Sometimes we get so lost in the big picture that we forget the small moments are what actually matter," Amari replied. Felice watched these midnight conversations from the doorway, saw her boss laugh for the first time in months, saw the isolated executive becoming someone softer, more open, and she saw Amari, this man she'd dismissed as nobody, treat Dr. Caldwell with a gentleness that had nothing to do with her money or position. One night as Amari was leaving, Felice pulled him aside. "She's falling for you," Felice said bluntly. "You know that, right?" Amari's face flushed. We're just talking." "Amari." Felice's voice was gentle now. "I've worked for Nia for 8 years. I've never seen her look at anyone the way she looks at you, and I've certainly never seen her laugh the way she does when you're here. She's a CEO, I'm a janitor. Those worlds don't mix. They're just labels, and maybe it's time both of you stopped letting labels define what's possible." By December, Dr. Caldwell's skin had healed enough for discharge. The doctors were baffled but couldn't argue with results. Her case would be studied for years, the mysterious condition that hundreds of specialists couldn't solve, cured by a simple remedy. The night before she was set to leave, Dr. Caldwell asked Amari to meet her in the hospital garden. It was cold, but she wanted fresh air, wanted to feel the wind on her skin without pain for the first time in months. Felice came too, standing a respectful distance away as Amari and Dr. Caldwell sat on a bench surrounded by dormant flower beds. "You saved my life," Dr. Caldwell said, her breath visible in the December air. "You saved your own life by being brave enough to trust someone you had every reason to dismiss." "I don't want this to end," Dr. Caldwell said quietly. "These conversations, seeing you every night, I know it's complicated. I know our lives are completely different. But I'd like to see you again, outside these walls, if you'd want that. I'd like that very much." Their first date was at a small coffee shop in downtown Atlanta. Dr. Caldwell arrived in casual clothes, no designer labels, no makeup to hide behind, just her. Amari wore his nicest shirt, nervous in a way he hadn't been since high school. They were awkward at first, stumbling over words. But then Dr. Caldwell laughed at one of Amari's stories about Layla trying to teach their elderly neighbor's cat to fetch, and the tension broke. They talked for 3 hours. Their second date was at a bookstore. Dr. Caldwell insisted, saying she wanted to buy picture books for Layla. She spent 40 minutes carefully selecting stories about brave girls and curious minds, asking Amari detailed questions about what his daughter would like. Watching her flip through children's books with such genuine care, Amari felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't the powerful CEO. This was just a woman who wanted to make a 4-year-old happy. Would you... He hesitated. Would you want to meet her? Layla, I mean. No pressure, it's just... Yes. Dr. Caldwell's answer was immediate. I'd love to. The following Saturday, Dr. Caldwell arrived at Amari's modest apartment in a middle-class neighborhood 40 minutes from downtown Atlanta. She held a stuffed bunny and a set of watercolor paints, gifts she'd agonized over for days. Layla peeked out from behind Amari's leg, her dark eyes wide and curious. Dr. Caldwell knelt down to her level, making herself smaller, less intimidating. Hi, Layla. Your daddy told me you like to draw. I brought some paints. Want to show me what you can make? For a long moment, Layla just stared. Then slowly, she emerged from behind Amari's leg. Can you paint clouds? Layla asked in her small voice. I'm not very good at it, Dr. Caldwell admitted, but maybe you could teach me. That afternoon, Amari watched from his tiny kitchen as Dr. Caldwell and his daughter sat on the living room floor, surrounded by papers and paint. Dr. Caldwell asked Layla about each drawing with genuine interest. This one is Daddy, Layla explained, pointing to a stick figure with a big smile. And this is me. And this... She hesitated, glancing at Dr. Caldwell shyly. This could be you, if you want. Dr. Caldwell's eyes glistened. I would love that. Over the following months, Dr. Caldwell became woven into the fabric of their small family. She took Layla to the aquarium, patiently explaining about each creature. They went to parks where Dr. Caldwell pushed Layla on swings, and Amari watched them both, his heart full in a way he hadn't felt since Tasha. Movie nights became a tradition. The three of them squeezed onto Amari's old couch, sharing popcorn, Layla eventually falling asleep between them. Dr. Caldwell would carefully lift Layla's head onto her lap, stroking her hair with tenderness that made Amari's throat tight. One evening, as Amari tucked Layla into bed, his daughter looked up at him with serious eyes. Daddy, she whispered, is Miss Nia going to be my new mommy? Amari's breath caught. Would you want that, sweetheart? Layla nodded vigorously. She's nice, and she knows about clouds, and she doesn't leave even when I ask her a million questions. After Layla fell asleep, Amari found Dr. Caldwell in the living room. He told her what Layla had asked. Dr. Caldwell was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I never thought I'd have this. A family. I was always too busy, too focused on the company. I told myself I didn't need it. But then I met you and Layla, and I realized I wasn't too busy. I was just waiting for the right people. Dr. Caldwell invited them to her home the following weekend, a beautiful house in Brookhaven. Layla's eyes went wide as they drove through the gates. You live in a castle, Layla breathed. Dr. Caldwell laughed. It's too big for just me. Houses like this need families. They need laughter and messy art projects, and people who actually live in them. Amari's mother came to visit one afternoon. The woman who'd been caring for Layla during Amari's night shifts watched Dr. Caldwell interact with her granddaughter, saw how naturally they fit together. Later, as Dr. Caldwell showed Layla the garden, Amari's mother pulled him aside. She looks at you the way Tasha did, his mother said quietly, with real love. Not the kind that's about what you can provide or who you are on paper. The kind that sees your soul. It feels too good to be true, Amari admitted. Like I'm going to wake up and realize it was just a dream. His mother touched his cheek gently. Then stop waiting to wake up. Start living it. 6 months after their first date, Amari and Dr. Caldwell were married in the hospital garden where everything had begun. It was a small ceremony. Close friends, hospital staff who'd witnessed the miracle, Amari's mother in the front row, and Layla dressed in white as the flower girl. clutching her stuffed bunny and beaming with joy. Felice stood as maid of honor, still sometimes shaking her head in wonder at the journey that had brought them here. As Dr. Caldwell walked down the makeshift aisle, her skin completely healed and glowing with happiness, Amari felt tears prick his eyes. The janitor and the CEO, worlds that weren't supposed to touch. But they had. Because sometimes love doesn't care about labels or expectations or what society says should be. The vows were simple, but powerful. "You saw me when I was invisible," Dr. Caldwell said. "You helped me when I had nothing to offer in return. You taught me that strength isn't about power or control. It's about being brave enough to care even when it might cost you everything." Amari's voice was thick with emotion. "You taught me that walls can come down. That different worlds can become one. That love doesn't see job titles or bank accounts. It just sees hearts, and your heart is the most beautiful thing I've ever known." "Kiss her, Daddy," Layla shouted, unable to contain herself, and the small gathering erupted in laughter. Amari did, and as everyone applauded, Felice stepped forward for her toast. "6 months ago," Felice began, "I almost called security on this man. I saw a janitor, someone beneath us, someone who had no business being in that room." She paused, looking at Amari with open warmth. "I was so wrong it makes me ashamed, but it also taught me the most important lesson of my life. Wisdom doesn't come in expected packages." She raised her glass. "Here's to seeing past labels. Here's to courage. Here's to love that defies expectations." As the reception continued, Dr. Caldwell found a quiet moment with Amari. "Do you remember what you said that first night, in my hospital room?" "I said a lot of things. Most of them probably sounded crazy." "You said you couldn't sleep anymore, knowing you might have something that could help and doing nothing about it." She took his hand. "That courage changed my life, not just because of the remedy, but because you showed me what real strength looks like. It's not about having power. It's about using whatever you have to help someone else." Their life together became something neither had imagined possible. Dr. Caldwell continued running Meridian Life Sciences, but differently now, more present, more grounded. She started funding research into rare conditions that big pharmaceutical companies ignored, remembering what it felt like to be the patient everyone gave up on. Amari enrolled in evening classes, pursuing the education he'd never had the chance to complete. Dr. Caldwell supported him, not with money, but with belief, studying with him at the kitchen table after Layla went to bed, celebrating every test passed, every milestone reached. Layla thrived. She had a mother figure who attended every school play, who helped with science projects, who listened to endless questions, and she had a father who showed her every day that real strength is about character, not credentials. Their family, born from impossible circumstances, became something beautiful, living proof that healing requires looking past titles to find genuine hearts, that love finds you in the most unexpected places, that sometimes the person who cleans your floors might not just save your life, they might become your whole world. Have you ever found something beautiful in the most unexpected place? Have you ever been underestimated or witnessed someone everyone dismissed turn out to be exactly what was needed? Share your story in the comments. Hit that like button if this touched your heart, and subscribe to TribeAfriTales so you never miss stories that remind us all that miracles are still possible. Because sometimes the answer you're looking for isn't in the places everyone tells you to look. Sometimes it's in the hands of someone the world overlooked. Someone who saw you not as a puzzle to solve, but as a person worth saving. And sometimes that makes all the difference.